we've seen a lot of people melt down in San Diego. We've seen big things change. We've seen big settlements. We've seen Ponzi schemes. We've seen big storms. We have seen a lot. We've seen COVID. But I cannot remember a single individual coming down this fast and taking so much with him as the Nathan Fletcher ongoing saga has been. It's just incredible. So let's start with an update. So this is a pretty significant one. Last week we talked about the county of San Diego. It is managed. It's 18,000 employees. Most of them are overseen by the CAO, the Chief Administrative Officer of the county. That the last two have been known for this stability, this technocratic sort of management style, and this county's been operationally pretty sound over the last 15 years, right? And so they need to hire a new one. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like the mayor of the county in a way. They have to hire this manager of the county. And they were about to, what's become clear is they were about to hire a woman from the Bay Area, from Santa Clara, a supervisor there named Cindy Chavez, who was also a labor leader, who, when you read the stories about her, like they're just filled with all of this praise from a lot of different angles. Now, she's obviously a labor active.
It's been funny to see how quickly so many people in San Diego became experts on Cindy Chavez, the San Jose Labor Council leader.
Yeah.
Cards on the table. I don't know much about her except what I've read.
Exactly. Right? That's why we all, caught up as best we could. So the news first leaked out of La Prensa, and then the San Jose Mercury News grabbed it, and a bunch of places up there. They obviously thought it was an important story. So that seems to have been going forward. And then we talked about the conspiracy theory last week that Nathan had delayed his resignation until mid-May so that he could weigh in on this and make this work, make this actually happen. And if you think about it, this would be the culmination, really, of the 5-year project that labor and progressives and the movement on the left that helped get Nathan Fletcher into office, and also Nora Vargas and then Tara Lawson-Remer to give them a majority. This is like the culmination, in a way, of that entire movement, right? To institutionalize somebody in a role like this with the principles that she has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, stipulating that I don't know much about her personally. I've never spoken to her, and I didn't know her name prior to when it popped up in a story 10 days ago. But just going by her biography, there could be no more illustrative transformation from Walt Eckerd, the operations technocrat, trains run on time, CAO when I moved to the city, to a former labor council leader turned elected official who was elected from with the support of a progressive liberal faction of supporters and interest groups coming into that position. It's a night and day. It couldn't be more different. And so this would have been, it's just, I guess it's the long way of saying it's not a small thing. This is not a minor vote. This is not just like, well, we had high hopes for this one thing. And so much so that I guess you could maybe start to see how they could talk themselves into, would people get too mad if Nathan comes back for one last vote?
Yeah.
Or just squeezes in.
Just squeezes back in, doesn't say anything, presses the button, walks back out, waves, and says, all right, long, San Diego.
As we talked about last week, though, that would be an act of political bare-knuckled aggression.
Yeah.
Unlike anything I can fathom. Now, there's nothing against the rules or whatever.
Right.
But, and so it seemed plausible. Maybe that was going to happen. There was a closed session of the county the week before this whole thing blew up. And it does talk about in there, like the recruitment as one reason why they can have that closed session. It was a Saturday special Saturday session. And so I think there's some indication that maybe that's what they were discussing there. And maybe they even advanced the choice there.
Yeah.
And so my point is that this was teed up. Again, this triumph of this movement on the left for 5 years was teed up to be finished. Maybe the days before this epic meltdown occurred.
Yeah, I know. For among those people, among the people who have been like their day-to-day work life is this movement that you're describing, they must a few times a day right now just be amazed with the timing of this meltdown.
It's extraordinary. So
they were about to complete it. They were about to be done.
So for a while, this was kind of sitting in the air, like, would they do? And then we started to see people address it, right? Scott Peters, the congressman, he said, I've checked with Nora Vargas and Tara Lawson-Remer on the board, and they say they wouldn't participate. They assured me they wouldn't participate in any vote like this.
Right.
Sort of like a hybrid, him making a statement and also like doing reporting.
Yeah, thank you.
like getting a comment that we like people had tried to get and didn't.
Yeah.
Well, but this followed the Board of Supervisors meeting where they voted on asking for Nathan to immediately resign. And during that meeting, Tara Lawson-Remer was one of the first supervisors to say, like, if he were to try to come back and participate in any sort of vote, I would not be a part of that.
Yeah.
And, Joel kind of echoed those comments, so did Anderson, but Nora was pretty quiet. So then I think the Scott Peters saying he spoke to Nora was pretty interesting.
Yeah, you're the one that noticed that. Like, Nora did not say anything in that meeting. And so we were all like, well, is she still holding out some hope here?
Not that it would matter, though, because if Tara Lawson-Remer is not going to vote, then they don't have the votes, even with Nathan.
Unless both the Republicans that joined. Yeah, exactly.
In which case, none of this matters.
Yeah, and then so there was still some like hemming and hawing until that night. Now, by the way, we just breezed past this, but the Board of Supervisors voted to both express no confidence in Fletcher and to demand that he leaves. It seems like you could do one or the other.
Yeah.
But the demand probably covers both sides.
It is like...
Yeah, if you're demanding him to leave, it kind of says you have no confidence.
It's implied a little bit.
It's okay.
I mean, the 2 weeks that we've gone through here where like week 1, like no one says anything. Like no one says anything.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, I like racing to be like, I support an MTS investigation. Like I support an MTS investigationer. Like I'm the most investigation-y. And then the 3rd week, it's like he's got to retire. He's got to resign right now. Right now is not early enough. He had to resign 6 minutes ago. He had to resign 11 minutes ago.
Right.
Like they're just
I'm the first to say he should have resigned a minute ago. And
it was in my brain before it was in your brain that he should resign now.
They're immediate resignation hipsters. Yes.
Like never mind that there was like an entire week
of
where
silence.
All of the information that we have now basically was out, and no one could be bothered to say like a word. In fact, they were pretty hostile to reporters who suggested that they should say a word.
Now, there were 2 of those comments on the epic pile-on that were a little nuanced. One of them was from Council President Sean Elo Rivera, who said, it's my understanding that he is in a facility isolated completely from all communication, and thus, I call on him to resign immediately, but only when that's actually possible. Like, we should keep that in mind. And then Councilmember Joe LaCava also said something similar. But we still were waiting on Nora Vargas. Now, she had finally said he should resign immediately, but what about this decision? Finally, she put out a joint statement with Tara Lawson-Remer where she said, we are going to leave this. We are not going to do this with his input.
Right. Okay. And now there is still very much debate going on.
Yeah.
And it is revealed by that statement. So there is a camp that has been whose demand has not been immediate resignation. They started there.
Mhm.
Like Jim Desmond said that like Sunday night.
Right.
After the Sunday night statement, right? Like,
I've seen enough. He's got to go.
Yeah. Their demand has been you must start over the process of hiring your CAO.
Right, like this process is tainted.
The
Pretty
people
much.
who the people who have been interviewed, who have been recruited, who maybe have had offers extended, that whole thing has been tainted, as you say, by Nathan Fletcher's involvement in it previously. And Nora and Tara's statement very clearly does not make good on that demand. They say, we're going to pause this,
Yes.
meaning this hiring process has been fine.
Mm-hmm. It's a great process.
We're going to pause until we get a new supervisor. Maybe
Yeah.
that's an appointee. Maybe we fill a special election, but we're not going to let Nathan come in and cast a deciding vote, and everything's on hold for a little while. Now, I don't know what, Chavez's employment picture is like. How long can she wait? If it's going to be 6 or 8 months, is she going to get another offer?
Does she still want the
Does
job?
she still want the job? Right? Like there, like lots
I'll
of
be like, oof.
She's like, I got an offer at Google.
yeah. Pausing is not a small thing, right?
Right.
Like people might move on. So I don't mean to minimize that what they've done there, but they have not made good on this promise. And so, like, this is one of those moments where you have to remind yourself that there's no like basic Republican versus Democrat disagreement on whether a personnel search is tainted by the inclusion at the onset of somebody who is now the subject of a scandal. That is not like a core principle
Right.
of either of the parties. That is not something that is a fixture
Right.
of conservative ideology versus liberal ideology.
Right.
This is not something that like online progressives are constantly fighting with Trumpists about. It is a procedural mechanism that no one has any core care
Right.
of at all. So no one is passionately on the side of restart hiring process or pause hiring process. No one has core beliefs about that. What they have core beliefs on is hire Chavez or don't hire Chavez.
Right.
That is it. That's the disagreement.
And it would probably
there's
benefit us all to just get there.
just say what's really going on.
Yeah.
We're having an open disagreement about whether we should hire that very specific person and her very specific resume to do this job. That's what people are now fighting about.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the only fight that's going on right now.
We still are waiting to hear more about MTS as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're going to be doing. Now, we did uncover that there was a lawsuit before
Mm-hmm.
from the same attorney who sued on behalf of Gracia Figueroa, that he represented a previous MTS employee, a man who said that he stood up for a woman at MTS who was denied a promotion because of her age and her
Like being dating or being married to, I can't remember which, a military member.
right.
Like family planning status as well.
Yeah, and the allegation was that he stood up for her and then was retaliated against. And we found out that was actually settled, right?
Yeah, $200,000 settlement.
So this is an interesting time for MTS, and we are waiting to see what investigations reveal. Also, what more we can learn about what actions they took the moment that the attorney sent them a letter saying, I'm going to sue you for sexual assault, discrimination, and harassment after you fired this employee.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, like they're going to hire an outside firm to look into this. But,
Right.
we're going to be paid to do this job anyway. So in the meantime,
Let's do it.
maybe we try to answer some of those questions on our own
Yeah.
if we can.
We'll keep working on it.
We have to come in every day.
I'm sorry. This is such a. You might be getting sick of hearing it, but this is again the implications and the far-reaching consequences of this scandal are something that we still every day are trying to understand, because it is so vast on politics, on the priorities and public policy that he had, on the other candidacies for office, on the future of the county, the future of things like homelessness and mental health. It's fascinating.
Yeah, there's still been no like no one willing to exhibit some leadership on that front. Like,
Right.
you know, MTS will continue to, I mean, I maybe they think it's trite or like obvious that we're going to continue to do what we were doing on homelessness or mental health. But like the relationship between the city and the county on homelessness has been different
Yes.
at different times in history, depending on who was in charge.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a foregone conclusion that they'll continue to work together well and have a shared sense of priorities about what needs to happen to make some headway on this topic.
Yeah. And for instance, Nathan Fletcher was directly involved with the mayor and with private philanthropy and others to put that shelter up in Midway, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And things like that. So
MTS has been an agency that has been like an afterthought regionally, often in its history. And like, it's just not a foregone conclusion that under a new board chair, that it will continue to, for better or worse, whether you think this is good or bad, that it'll continue to assert itself to improve public transportation.
Yeah, so these are quintessential leadership vacuums, and we're kind of waiting to see where people like Nora Vargas or Stephen Whitburn or Todd Gloria or these other people,
Sonny Rivera.
if it even occurs to them to step into that and show that kind of leadership. Because whatever you want to say about Nathan Fletcher, he had some juice on these topics.
Right. Yeah. I mean, exactly. And the flip side of it, like Jim Desmond and Joel Anderson seem to have recognized the opportunity that they received. Whereas it sort of seems like on the left, everyone has just been shell shocked, and they're hoping that they can say as little as possible to get through it, as opposed to a sort of the only way is out. The only way out is through. Let's lean into this and whatever.
If you want to follow all of this, look, all the things we've been following over the last month, there's been a lot of dilemma, a lot of scandals, a lot of updates, a lot of settlements, a lot of all kinds of stuff. The best way to follow everything in this city like that is with the Morning Report. Get it at vosd.org/morning. We're meeting every day, talking about the Morning Report, getting it juiced up. It's looking good these days.
Yeah, it is. Everyone's doing a great job.
vosd.org/morning.